What's up, guys? This is Coach Alex VanHouten on the Faithful Fitness Podcast. I'm super stoked about the guest I have for you today and the conversation we're going to have. It actually happens to be one of my favorite people to have conversations with in the health and fitness world, although we don't get to do this very often, so maybe we should make it more of a habit of it. What's up, Bruce? Dr. Bruce Cooper joining us. How are you today, brother?
I am well. How are you, Alex?
I'm kicking butt and taking names today, or at least I started that way. We'll see if I end the day that way, or if my children throw me a curveball. Introducing you to my audience, and then we'll get into the meat of our conversation. Guys, this is Dr. Bruce Cooper's bio. With over 25 years of experience at the intersection of health and fitness and functional medicine, Dr. Bruce Cooper brings a unique and powerful blend of clinical insight, real-world application, and personal passion to the work that he does with clients every day. Dr. Bruce holds a PhD in natural medicine as a board-certified doctor of traditional naturopathy, and he has a degree in human biology. He's also a certified nutritionist and personal trainer. At Cooper Health Solutions, Dr. Bruce specializes in helping clients optimize their energy, balance their hormones, and restore metabolic health by focusing on cellular healing, blood sugar stability, and nervous system regulation. He's especially skilled at translating complex science into simple, actionable strategies that can lead to real transformation, a skill I hope we both share. What's up, brother? Thank you for that awesome introduction. And let me just say, congratulations on your PhD, dude. Well deserved. How long did it take you to earn that thing?
It's been a journey since right around 2017, 2018. Actually, it goes back to probably 2010, 2011 when I was looking for my platform to stand on, something that will give me the foundation to be able to help all of the people out there that are suffering with that dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
Yeah.
That's a cool breakdown of the word disease, which I'm sure we'll dig into. But I have to say to everybody watching and listening, Bruce is a business owner. Bruce is a husband, Bruce is a father, and somehow Bruce made the time also to pursue his PhD, which is quite a bit of work. Bruce, can you give me an understanding? You and I were connected mutually in a company over 10 years ago. You're one of the few people in this sphere who knew me before my wife knew me. So we've shaken hands and worked together since before I was a husband and father myself. But that said, what led you to where you are right now?
Alex, it's been a long journey. It has not been an easy journey. There have been a lot of obstacles thrown in the path.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, as I was going through them, I had no idea why I was going through it. And like yourself, I believe in God, and I believe He has a path for all of us. And there were many times where I asked those same questions about why am I going through this? And so if I had to go back, I said this journey started when I was probably 14, 15, 16 years old. And I gave up being a swimmer. I was told I could go pretty far, but I thought I made the adult decision to become an athletic trainer in high school because I really was focused on either wanting to be a physical therapist or an orthopedic surgeon. And I landed my teenage dream job at a physical therapy clinic. I was a technician. I had some great mentors through physical therapy. I went to college. I was getting my degree in human biology. I finished up at Texas Women's University, which at the time was the number 3 physical therapy school in the nation. I was so excited. I applied and I didn't get accepted. I asked the director of physical therapy at the campus I was in, and she checked out. She couldn't figure out why. I had alumni from TWU that wrote me recommendation letters. I had the Olympic ski team doctor orthopedic surgeon write me a letter of recommendation. The doctor for the Mavericks, the Star. I mean, there were like I had a who's list.
Mm-hmm.
I had the grades. I didn't get in. I went and became a paramedic while I was waiting to go ahead and try again. Did some great things there. And then about a year or two later, just before I applied again, I was offered a job in actually technology. And at the time in my mid 20s, it was like, oh, you're going to pay me more than a physical therapist makes, and I need to make money. And there was a decision there. And I took this left turn. And I spent about 15 years in project and product management around software.
Mm.
And I enjoyed it. It was fun. I could tell it wasn't my what I was designed to do. I kept trying to reach and figure out, well, I'm helping people in this way and I'm helping people in that way, but it didn't work.
Mm.
And then the economy took a downturn and I was laid off and I was struggling to find a job. And we went through our own crises in our family. And I took a job and became a personal trainer, which is where we met.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that job was only supposed to be 3 months. I took the job at the end of, I believe, 2009. And at the beginning, it's hard to get a new job at the end of a year. Everybody's in their budgets and making new budgets for next year. But I was going to go back into software in the beginning of 2010. And where we were, they were talking a lot about metabolism and blood chemistry, and it re-engaged me into my passion around helping people. And I moved up the corporate ladder just like I did in software.
Mm-hmm.
I was moving up and I finally became a regional. I was the first non-registered dietitian to run a nutrition business. In a club, and then I became a regional, and then one thing led to another, and that wasn't where I was supposed to be anymore. And I left to write my dissertation as a traditional naturopath, finished that out through the end of the year, and then I soft opened Cooper Health Solutions at the end of 2017, and in 2018 we really launched. And then I was looking for my platform. I went to a chiropractic school. I was accepted there. I went to a PA school. I was accepted there. I went back to TW. I was accepted in their nursing program and their RD program. I was just looking, but they didn't feel right. They didn't sit well.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wanted something more than just being a traditional naturopath. And then over the course of, several years, I was looking for that, and that's where the PhD program came up in natural medicine. It is a PhD program that is actually designed and geared more towards MDs to learn more about natural medicine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I went through that. So there was a lot of Western medicine in that program.
Baked in, yeah.
And so I love when West meets East, the traditional medicine, the functional medicine come together. And that's where I went down that road and took all my tests this last year and passed them all. And I now have that PhD. But looking back on all of that, and this is where I get chills. And you know this, as an entrepreneur owning your own business, you have to have some sort of business acumen.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to do that. And I wasn't going to get that necessarily from being a physical therapist. I believe God put me on a different path so I could learn technology, which is integral in what we're doing every day. Here we are on Zoom, on a computer. You need to know how to do all of these things. The different databases and my practice management system, my client portal, all of those things come together. And it was because I learned that when I was in software that I'm able to do that today.
Right.
It was because of what I did as a physical therapy tech and the great mentors I had. People that were attached all over the place. Like I said, in the Olympics, U.S. tennis. I mean, it was all over that I was learning from. Gave me the skills I needed when I became a personal trainer. Because when I became a personal trainer, I wasn't taking people out, and it was just about lifting as much, lead as you possibly could or iron as you could and putting it down. But I
Right.
was fixing broken people. A lot of people that I was working with were people with limps
Hmm.
or different biomechanical deviations that I could spot. And I was like, hey, let me help you with this.
Hmm.
I remember one of the first, I had a class put together of people with neurology deficits, MS, and I had a quadriplegic in that class. That's what I was training, in the beginning, and a lot of people with orthopedic issues. But I wouldn't have known how to do that or build my personal training business had I not done what I did around being a physical therapy tech for
Hmm.
9 or 10 years.
Hmm.
So all of these things connected me to where I am today. But when I didn't get into physical therapy school, I was down. I was like, why? How could I not? This is my dream.
Right. This is what I'm
And then
supposed to be up to.
yeah, well, and that's not where I was supposed to. But when I was laid off in software, and it was funny because I was laid off, I took another job and that didn't work out, and it was really bad, and it wasn't work because I was going against the plan,
Hmm.
and it wasn't where I was supposed to be.
Hmm.
And though I can't say owning a business hasn't had its own struggles,
Sure.
but two things have come out of that is we're growing. And about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I decided that we're doing a lot of the same things. And so we were going to combine our practices. So we got into a practitioner group that helps us do that. And so now we're one Cooper Health Solutions. So now I get to work with my best friend and my spouse every day and build a business where we're helping people live their best lives,
Mm.
get their health and wellness back, navigate the world of confusion that's out there. And I'm sorry if that was a little long-winded with that, but it's so fantastic because when you're in it and you're this close to it, you can't tell what the plan is.
No, no,
But
you
I
can't.
look back today and every struggle I've had over the past 30 years has led me to this point today.
Mm.
And it's just greatness. So
Man, thank you so much for sharing that part of your story too. And it's hard to give a 10,000-foot view of the journey that God brings us through to lead us in our calling, but also so that we are in the process of becoming who we're made to be, doing what we were supposed to be doing to serve the individuals we've been sent here to serve. And so there was something you were talking about in there that I think kind of brings us to a point I wanted to talk about today. I was also enamored with orthopedic surgery back during my undergraduate. I had the opportunity at one point to go see an orthopedic surgery procedure. It was a hip replacement procedure. And at the time, I didn't know anything about what I wanted to do with my life or whatever. But I do remember being a part of bringing the patient from outpatient. And we were being like super gentle with this guy because he was in a lot of pain. He had broken his hip, probably falling down or something. Anyway, I don't remember the story. I just remember he was in a lot of pain. And so we're being really careful. And I'd never been in charge of somebody who was in so much pain. So I'm being like ultra careful, like trying to, help him maneuver. I'm trying not to bump into the walls with the gurney and all that stuff. And we get him into pre-op, and then the surgeons there, the orthopedic surgeons, they're super cool dude. I loved my time communicating with orthopedics. They're really funny people. Like like orthopedic surgeons have a really funny sense of humor. I feel like they have to for what they do. But so then we bring this guy back to surgery, cover him in iodine, he goes under and all that stuff. And then the craziest thing happens. They turn the human body into shop class. And like this guy that we were being so careful with, all of a sudden he's like, they're flipping him on the table, like, and they got this like big giant steel thing, and they're just hammering away, and then they're talking about, who won the game last night, and I was like, what is happening right now? Like this is crazy. And so they finish the procedure, everything goes good, they bring him into post-op, and when the guy wakes up, he said, how did everything go? And the nurse wasn't right there, the doctor wasn't right there. I was there, through the process. I was like, as I understand it, everything went great, and the doctor will be here to tell you in a second. And he goes, I feel kind of funny, like I don't know, like I just got beat up. And I was like, I didn't say anything, but I'm like, if only you knew, dude. You just got hammered, like legit hammered. But I was in love. I thought it was so cool. What was crazy about that though is, and I learned this moving into the personal training space. What was crazy about that though is they restored the guy's capacity to walk, but he wasn't in great shape to begin with. And this was true of a lot of people who went through orthopedic surgery. They weren't in great shape to begin with. And then now they have this miracle of modern medicine, a joint replacement. Like, that's cool. They have a new joint, they can use it, and it's functional. But what's crazy is the habits and the nutrition and the exercise practice that the guy had prior didn't change with the procedure. And so he could walk around now without a broken hip, which is great. But he's not flourishing any more than he was prior to the procedure. And I remember seeing this dichotomy so intensely when I started working as a personal trainer. I would be at the hospital by day, and I would see these people come in and out, and then doctors talking about how we wish we could do more for our patients, but here's what we can do. And then being in the gym with a completely different set of people who are willing to pay money out of their pocket to actually shift the things and change the things that would help them flourish in life. And I remember that being like, it was like living a double life. like in when I was experiencing you mentioned earlier kind of the Western medicine, the allopathic model for medicine, signs, symptoms, cure. And then I would say the naturopathic model of medicine, which is to deal with the root causes that hurt the fruits of thriving. And so I'd love to kind of transition our conversation here and talk about that, because one of the things that we wanted to get to talk about today together was this whole idea that maybe I'm a person listening to this right now. I'm doing everything right as far as I know, right? I'm doing everything right, but I'm still exhausted. My body's inflamed. I'm gaining weight. Like, what's the deal? How can I be doing everything right as I know it, but my body still not be thriving? What are you finding in your practice, Dr. Bruce?
So, such a great question. And it's one that I think our traditional medical model does not answer well for many reasons. But in my opinion, when it comes to why people are having all of these issues, boil it down to cellular health. And there's something going on at the cellular level that's not being dealt with. What do I mean by that? Well, we're an organism. Our organisms are made up of organ systems, cardiovascular, respiratory, whatever. Those organ systems are made up of organs: heart, lung, liver, skin. Those organs are made up of tissues, and those tissues are made up of cells. So a question I ask just about every one of my clients, if not all of them: if all of the cells, the trillions of cells in your body, are healthy, are you healthy? And the answer is yes. Yeah. Thumbs up. You are, because of all the cells that make up of all the tissues, that make all the organs, that make all the organ systems, that make up the organism, which is you, is healthy, you're healthy. So that's one. So what is going on at the cellular level that's causing all of this? Now, I even take it a step further. So my favorite organelle is the mitochondria.
Mine too.
Hear me talk about the mitochondria often. I think my two favorite words in the English language is automatopoeia, and mitochondria. Just like saying them, they just sound great. But the mitochondria, so when we think back, and most of your audience has been through some sort of biology class, and even in grade school or high school, and they think back, they remember hearing the powerhouse of the cell. And that's great. That's where energy is made. And you and I know, and probably a lot of your audience knows, that molecule is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. But let's just go with the powerhouse of the cell. So when people start feeling more fatigued all the time, it's more chronic. That tells me one thing: something is going on at the mitochondrial level. Now, what most people don't know is the mitochondria is more than just the powerhouse of the cell. So there is a function in the body called apoptosis. Apoptosis is cell death. And we can get into, what the mitochondria does for that, but it controls cell death. What happens if a cell in the body, I'm asking you a question now, what happens if a cell in the body does not die when it's supposed to?
It limps along, living a terrible existence, trying to do its job poorly.
So there's a lot of talk, we hear a lot of talk in the functional medicine world about senescent cells or zombie cells that just aren't functioning well, which in my mind is a step before the C diagnosis. And I don't like working in the world of diagnoses. So, but when a cell is growing outside of where it's supposed to be, that's what a cancer tumor is. And so we have to think about that. So what happens? So I hear a lot about now, and I'm so happy it's coming more to the surface, that cancer is a mitochondrial or a metabolic disease. Okay. So we got apoptosis. Your immune system, if you're constantly sick, if you're even seasonal allergies, your mitochondria is responsible for part of your immune system. Autoimmune. When I was a kid, you rarely even heard of autoimmune. Nowadays, everywhere I turn, there's autoimmune diseases. And they're not, well, I'll get to that in a second, about the diagnosis, that label that modern medicine, that the traditional medical model pulls on you, does not have to be your identity. And I'm very big on that, because I'm very big on mindset, which I know you are too. And you have to have the right mindset. Mitochondria is responsible for cell signaling. So there's something called the cell danger response that was developed by someone named Robert Navo. And it's a cascading effect, but cell signaling is where one cell talks, they talk to all the other cells around them, and those cells talk. And if the body is in danger and chronic stress, they're having those conversations, if you will, quote unquote conversations. Stem cell differentiation starts in mitochondria. Stem cells are what become every cell in our body. And so that starts there. Hormone production. So when we start thinking of testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, all of those hormones are and maybe finished off in the mitochondria. Heme synthesis. Heme is the molecule in our body that carries oxygen in our red blood cells. That's made in the mitochondria. The mitochondria knows about oxygen levels and knows when oxygen levels are depleting in the body or are in abundance. So it knows that. It also knows calcium and helps regulate calcium in the body. And we can go through that and talk about all those labels that are put on people when those things are messed up. But that right there is when people talk about fatigue, that's the one that most people understand with it. But there's so many more reasons that that's impacted. And then where is that impact coming from? So we spoke, you asked about, what's going on and where it all is. All this disease and dis-ease coming from. And so it's damage to the cell, and specifically, in a lot of cases, the mitochondria. So free radical damage, free radicals from reactive oxygen or reactive nitrogen species, and the oxidation. So that happens and causes that cell danger response and the cell signaling to the other cells that, hey, there's a problem here. But when we look at free radicals, the process of making energy in the body increases the oxidation in the cell, in the mitochondria. We were built, creator and design, we were built to be able to handle that. But when we look at what's going on in the environment we live in today, we've increased the amount of stress in the cell from toxins, environmental, chemical, heavy metals, radioactive elements, bacteria, virus, molds, and other funguses. All of these things impact what's going on, and we're literally blowing it open with what we're doing in the environment. I'm not a big fan of glyphosate, which is used in to keep the weeds out, and the pesticides, the herbicides, all of this. But glyphosate is also used in drying agent in wheat. And how many people do you know or have heard over even your clients that are either celiac or sensitive to gluten? I don't necessarily believe gluten is actually the issue, but the issue is coming from what we're doing to our foods. And then stress is a big problem. I like to talk about the 3 P's of stress. So we talked a lot about physiological, all the toxins in the environment, everything like that causes some physiological. There's physical stress. You like to work out, you put your body under some physical stress, but sometimes when we are at a heightened stress level and the bucket's overflowing, doing those hardcore workouts that I know I've seen you do may not be right for everybody. And there may be a time to dampen that. And then there's, and I think one of the biggest ones is that psychological stress, the mental, emotional stress. My spouse, my kids, my boss, my finances, my whatever, and that constant worry that we can't turn off is a big factor. So when you say, where is this dis-ease coming from in the world? This is where I think it cascades down from and starts causing all that damage.
Now, I want to try for our listeners to say what you said like to take all that and put it in a couple sentences. And so what I'm hearing is that my subjective experience, so how I feel, exhausted, inflamed, diseased, right? That how I feel can be in many ways in the body traced down to some real, not that it's unreal what I'm feeling and thinking, but a feeling's hard to put a finger on. But it can be traced in many cases to real dysfunction at the cellular level. Yes. And one of the major things that you're seeing in your practice that people can actually affect through the environments they put their body in, through the way they choose to feed themselves, through exercise practice even, whether hard or easy, that one of those things is mitochondrial health. And that, our body's made up of trillions of cells, and each one of those cells, depending on where it is in the body and what its function is, has several hundred, if not several thousand mitochondria inside of it. And the mitochondrial health of my cells can be influenced and affected to produce more energy, to facilitate cell death, to improve my immune function, and many other things that would actually make a difference on how I feel, how I think, and what I do on a daily basis. Is that about right? You had something to add there.
Oh, no, you were talking about so there are 10 million billion, so 10 million billion mitochondria in the body. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And that's about 10% of your body weight.
Yep. That's a massive amount. And if they're doing their job, 10% of me can really influence the other 90%.
Yep.
But if they're not, and it's not woe to the mitochondria. I read this very powerful study. You might find this interesting or not. You're a nerd like I am, so you probably already heard of it. But where they took cells and let them proliferate in a petri dish, right? And what they did is, a lot of people don't know this, but protein is building blocks for our cells and tissues and stuff. We know that we're built out of proteins. But what they did is they gave different types of fats to these cells in order for the cell to build itself. And you may or may not know, listening, that your body's also built out of fats. Like every mitochondria we just talked about, every million billion of them, they're wrapped in a bilayer, a lipid bilayer, a membrane that's built out of fats. And so if you have fats available for the cell to build itself out of, those are the fats that the cell will build itself out of. And what they were looking at was, what's the optimal ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids in this petri dish setting? So it's not like real world in your body, but what's the optimal ratio? And it turns out that the higher the omega-3 fatty acid content of the petri dish, the less easily damaged the mitochondrial membranes were. So the mitochondrial membranes were way more resilient to oxidative damage if they were built out of omega-3 fatty acids compared to omega-6 fatty acids. And that's very powerful, because in my mind, I'm like, I want to be damage resilient. Like I want to be damage resilient down in every one of my cells. And so my nutritional consumption can influence, and we don't know exactly how this works when you're not in a petri dish, but we do know that my nutritional consumption can influence what my body ultimately uses to build itself out of. And I thought that was amazing. What are some of the things that you're seeing in your practice that if somebody's exhibiting signs of mitochondrial dysfunction, what are some things that you're like, hey man, these are the top 5 table stakes? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to make your 5 list here, but what are some of the things that you know, hey, it's time to focus on these, because it will change how your body functions, it will change how you feel, and there will be real improvement in this process for you?
So number one for everybody is mindset. There is so much power in what we think and what we believe to help us heal. If a client comes to me and is like, there's nothing you're going to be able to do for me, they're probably right. It goes back to if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Okay. So mindset is number one. If they're like, yeah, this is working, and I've seen autoimmune diseases not be there anymore after going through our programs. It just, doctor said I'm going to have Hashimoto's or whatever it is for the rest of my life. And my wife is the first one I'm sorry, she usually sits at the desk over here. That's why I point. She was the first one we actually took through our program with years of trial and error and stuff that was the model that we put together. We now have a proprietary and trademarked process called the hormone triad reset. So it starts with cellular detoxification support and cellular healing. And everything this is not done in serial. Everything is done in parallel, but the first phase, which I just gave you, has to be, in my opinion, has to be really done well before we get to the third phase. So the second phase, which overlaps that, is limbic system rebalancing, parasympathetic, sympathetic system, nervous system rebalancing. That's where a lot of the mindset comes in, and changing that. And then the last one we've termed a hypothalamus reset, because the hypothalamus, being the control center of the brain, it gets the feedback loops from all your hormones and neurotransmitters and everything to say, hey, we need more of this, or we need more of that, or we need less of this or less of that. And so it really controls all those levels. And I basically, the way I explain it, it's like rebooting your computer when things are just not working well. We reboot it, and then all of a sudden, your apps are opening right, your printer's now working, you're connected to the internet, all the things are working right. That's the same thing when we do the reset with the hypothalamus. It's my hormones are out of balance. Let's regulate those, clean that out, clean the impediments from making them, start healing the ovaries, the testes, the pancreas, whatever that is, and then work with the hypothalamus to recalibrate, if you will. So mindset is, even though I put it in that second phase that I was talking about, it's something we start working with people right away
Mm-hmm.
because we want them to know that they can succeed. And that's where, and I've always been bad about this, but that's really where the power of all of our success stories come into place.
Mm-hmm.
So just in the last year and a half, we've really had this program out with people.
Mm-hmm.
And knock on wood, because I don't like to say this, but 100% of our clients that we've been putting through the program have been getting better, have been
Awesome.
seeing results, and it's
Awesome.
amazing. And yeah, we're very blessed to be able to uh, bring that to society, to
Mm-hmm.
our clients. Anyway, mindset's number one. Cleaning out the interference is number two. We can talk about 1A, 1B if we want to, but number two, and that's detoxification support.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things, different heavy metals like mercury, that we see a lot, molds, uh, the bacteria. So that's where Lyme comes from, is Babesia, Bartonella, and Borrelia.
Mm.
Borrelia is the main Lyme. Those interfere. Parasites can interfere. So all of these things that can get in the way of being able to reduce those free radicals or that oxidative stress, that inflammation in the body, and cause havoc in our immune system,
Mm.
can interfere with the mitochondria, with what the cell is trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
and cause other problems. So that's really number two, is removing the interference or the impediments. And then coming back into some of the mindset stuff, really working on more of the parasympathetic nervous system, balancing back to that sympathetic, because we see a lot of sympathetic dominance in people,
Mm-hmm.
where the sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. And I used to talk about, when you walked in the jungle, there was a tiger. But after I saw The Revenant, which I don't know if you've seen it with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he fights that bear, I don't think there is a more stressful situation I've ever seen in cinema. So now you're walking, through the forest and a bear comes
And
out.
there's a bear.
Yeah. You can either run or you can fight it. Either way, your body is going to respond. But what most people don't know is you don't need a bear to put you in sympathetic dominance. Your boss, your finances, your kids, your spouse, your job, you're keeping up with the junk, all of these things adds to that stress.
And we're learning that even past traumas can do that to us.
Yes. Yes. And we have to really purge those things out. So again, mindset, clearing out the interference, and then rebalancing. So the limbic system is where the
Mm-hmm.
parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So when I say that, it's both but balancing that back out. And that's really, Heidi handles a lot of that. I do some with our clients, but we really have put some meat around that.
Mm.
And once that is done, then doing some of what we've combined and labeled into our hypothalamus reset. And that's just getting the body to accept the signals that are being sent in the appropriate way. So, you hear about insulin resistance and leptin resistance, and these hormone resistances. You hear about what I think is one of the worst terms ever to be thrown out there, but adrenal fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think your glands fall asleep. I just think there's a dysfunction in what's being produced. We hear about estrogen dominance. All of those are metabolic issues that the hypothalamus really oversees, maybe through
Mm-hmm.
the pituitary or the pineal gland, but
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. So it's being able to get the body to balance back out. So I didn't necessarily give you five. I gave you four.
That I think there was like 14 wrapped in the four. But I can dig it. The in starting with the mindset, I don't want anybody listening to go, oh, mindset. Like I need my listeners to understand something, and I would also love your thoughts on this. That when we talk about, let's say as Christians, I have a practice of approaching the Bible every day. That means that I'm going to open the Old Testament, New Testament. I'm going to read something from the Old Testament, New Testament. If I've made the time and I'm serious about this, I might even munch on it. I might even meditate on it. I might think about how what it means, who wrote it, why, what the context of the culture was, how it may or may not apply to me at this moment, and it might be something that pops up for me multiple times. And what's really powerful about that practice and process, my youngest, he likes to joke. He's like, he's 6, so he's not joking. He's actually very serious about it, but hopefully it'll turn into a joke at some point. He's like, when are we going to be done with the Bible, Dad? Like, because we approach it together as a family. It's a devotional thing. And in his mind, you read a book and you're done. You move on to a new book. It's like, no. The Bible's been around for a very, very, very long time. And the words might not change, but you do. And so when you come back to the words of the Bible, it might be the same words every time, but it will impress upon you something that you didn't see prior, right? And what's interesting about this, Paul talks about this in the New Testament, that we can be transformed by the renewing of our minds, and that we're fickle beings. We've got all kinds of mindsets flying at us 100 miles an hour in the world we live in today, whether you're on social media or news, or maybe your coworker said something off color to you and now it's stuck in there, or maybe it's a personal negative belief that's followed you around your entire life, right? But you've got all this collection of stuff up here, and when you approach the Bible, you are now exposed to things like, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Those who love are children of God. like you start to wrap your heart and mind around these mindsets that are life-giving, that have stood the test of time, that will be around way longer than you are going to be. And those things are powerful and good. And so we as Christians understand this mindset thing is powerful, but we don't always apply that to our health. And the idea that, like, if I think about my health, I'm like, I've been wrestling with my illness for so long, or I'm never going to get better, or same stuff, different day, or whatever. That's different from God made this body. He made this body to serve him well. God can heal me. I might have a role to play. The things I eat matter. The way I move matters. How I rest matters. And when I start to become an agent in my mindset, as opposed to a subject, meaning when I move from there's nothing I can do, everything sucks and it's only going to get worse, to there are some things that I can do. And I'm not exactly sure how it will all affect me, but I have faith that if I move in a proper direction, good things will happen in my body. That's not just a mindset. That's a belief that can change everything over time. And so when you said I start with mindset, I wanted to hammer in on that, because I do believe that was Carl Rogers said in the therapeutic process. That's the underlying power of the therapeutic process, is the belief that there's actually something worthwhile we can do in this session that will change things for the better, even if it's small.
I agree wholeheartedly. When I was brought up when I was younger, I didn't like to have an optimistic outlook because I was, it was brought up. This is your stereotypical Jewish household where, oh, it's going to happen. Oh, the sky's going to fall. We're gonna we're going to roam the desert for 40 years. Here we go. That's, and, and I've learned over time, because I was always afraid that if I was too optimistic, something would happen, and that would, I'd just be shattered.
Mm.
Like it was easier to go, it's, be a little Eeyore. And then if the sun shined, well, look at that. Look how great that is.
Woohoo! Yeah, I'd rather be
If it
surprised by
didn't,
something positive. Yeah.
but if it didn't, then you can go. And you know, and my wife is a Christian, but she's very optimistic, like almost to the point that I'm like, okay, you got to bring it down just a little bit. I've watched her, and I've watched how she's dealt with things in her life, and I'm like, I need to emulate that a little more. That's better.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that if I'm more optimistic, some bad things may still happen, but it's the next step. And part of that is, a good portion of my life journey has been with her. And what really clicked to me, and was a few years ago, is when I look back on my life and all the things that we spoke about at the very beginning, and my very long-winded journey from a teenager to where I am now, from being in high school to a PhD,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the, let's put it in quotes, the bad that happened in my life for a very good reason, because I wouldn't be where I am today without that.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in relationships. And I have a long-winded story about Heidi, but if I wouldn't have gone through the other relationships in my life that were not very successful,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have the amount of respect and love for her,
Mm-hmm.
because of those. Because I know, like, I found this diamond, and you don't want, that's, and it's a treasure, and she is.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing. So when I look at my clients, and they're all the people, most, like 95% of the people that come to me, because I do have some people that are like, hey, I just want to optimize. I had someone years ago come to me. Nothing was really wrong. She wanted to lose a little weight, maybe feel a little bit better, but she didn't want to go through what all of her family members went through.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wanted to optimize. But most people come with that dys-ease.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have a disease because of it. And one of the things I've noticed that people will do with their disease is they go to the doctor, and the doctor gives them this label. And that label legitimizes their dys-ease.
Mm.
And while that's good, because when people come to me and they say, hey, I don't have any energy, I can't wake up in the morning, I'm brain foggy, you name it, they have that dys-ease. I don't doubt them. I'm eating perfectly and I'm not losing weight. Well, let's take a look at what your nutrition is. Yeah, maybe we can make a couple of tweaks here, but I don't come from that standpoint that everybody, when they log their food, lies.
They're lying. That's why. No.
Because I've seen different. I know you have too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I believe people when they tell me things, and then we work on that together. And hopefully at some point they come out of that dys-ease, that dis-ease state, and they don't have the disease anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that. I had a client that was on metformin and 2 types of insulin. I actually recommended to his endocrinologist to go on a GLP-1 agonist. This was before the craze, or just actually as the craze was about to start, because he had a hard time getting it because of the way I read his labs. And I sent him to his endocrinologist, who's putting him on all these things to help lower his blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
The wrong way. In my mind, it was the wrong way. Now, I don't diagnose and treat.
Sure.
make that very clear to people. So I asked him to go to his doctor and say, have him look at these labs, and this is what I'm telling you, and just ask him about it. And he was like, oh, that's a great idea. We tried some natural stuff, but the consistency he was having wasn't there. And so having that GLP-1 agonist was actually right for him. He was on statins, he was on blood pressure, all these meds that people are on, and now he's coming off of them. The disease can be just as much as you can get into it, you can take it away, but we have to do the work. The clients have to do the work.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to think what I hate, and where I first realized that my mom's since passed, she was diagnosed probably in the 90s with fibromyalgia. And she was constantly saying, my fibromyalgia, I can't do this because of my fibromyalgia. And there, she was missing out on a lot of great things in life, experiences. And what I found out from her and from working with others in physical therapy is they were attaching to that because that said, my pain is okay because I have this, instead of, taking that diagnosis, that label, and saying, okay, I don't want this. What can I do to get rid of it? But the traditional medical model says, we're going to give you this. That's who you are. And you see that on these commercials.
Yep.
When I see people saying, singing and dancing because I have type 2 diabetes, but I can take a pill or a shot and I'm so happy, that sends the wrong message out to the world. To Americans, because I think there's only one other country that allows that type of marketing to people to say, but people are singing and dancing with a disease that could go horrible, and not trying all of these other interventions that we can have. So that's where I go back to mindset. Don't take that label on. Once people get rid of that label and say, I don't want this. That's not me. I am not fibromyalgia. I'm not diabetes. I'm not with you. I know you've been open about EDS. It's not yours.
Right. It's not.
And yeah. And I mean, but look at you. I mean, you're an amazing example of mindset.
Well, that kind of brings me to this intersection of faith and health and fitness. For me, one of the powerful verses in the New Testament that brings me into a mindset that I can not only live with, but I think differentiates this for me is Jesus said that if any man wishes to be my disciple, he will deny himself, pick up his cross, and follow me. And in that verse, one of the symbols is the cross, right? And there's a lot of things the cross stands for in the Christian narrative, but one of the things that I've found that it stands for me is the cross symbolizes the mortal and difficult things that we can carry, but the cross isn't you. And that was something that Jesus said, I will deny myself, pick up my cross, and follow him. So I will make the conscious decision not to whine about being a victim, not to confuse my identity with the things that I struggle with, but I will pick that up voluntarily. I'll hoist it on my shoulder, and knowing that that's still separate from me, I'm going to carry it forthrightly. And in the Christian narrative, forthrightly means up the hill into my death, which ultimately is life. And we don't have the time to get into the theology of it here, but the idea being that, for me, anytime I talk about Ehlers-Danlos, I never say my Ehlers-Danlos. I never say that. I'll say one of the things I struggle with Ehlers-Danlos is this. And the reason for that is because I see it. I honestly see it in my mind's eye as part of the burden that I carry. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily even that heavy of a burden. I have carried way heavier things in my life than Ehlers-Danlos, but most notably farmer carry at 150 pounds. Man, it's way heavier. But I see that as a separate thing. So I struggle with things as a result of deciding to carry this forthrightly, but those things aren't me, right? And I was curious
Love
if
that.
for you, thank you for that. I was curious if for you, if there's a place where faith and fitness intersect for you, maybe verses that you draw some inspiration from, or some comments that you'd like to make about what I said about the gospel just now.
I love everything you just said. It is a great metaphor that you put together, because the cross that you bear, the one that I bear, they're packed with different things.
Hmm.
Ehlers Danlos is just, it's one of those. And some things go on there, and then they can come off later, It's
Hmm.
um so I found I believe this is where I found this verse. And I wrote it down actually. So um have you seen the little keep calm, trust God
Yeah.
cards? So Heidi started this, and every time, when she's starting to move out of the brick and mortar, we're going 100% virtual. So, she has her own story. It would probably be a great conversation. If you ever wanted her, I could set that up.
I would love it.
Because her story is a very powerful one too. But she, started as a licensed esthetician and has moved into the functional medicine practice, and is in her uh, process following to get her board certifications and PhD as well.
Mm.
So she put the card in the bag when people would buy, their skincare products, and then we moved more into functional medicine. And some people purchase through our online store, different supplements, and we would put those in the package when they ship out. If we stay on top of keeping them in, because this is where they go. But the keep calm, trust God is cards had and I used to forget to put them in there, and I started doing it. I actually had a client, infertility client, that just wasn't doing well, who now has a 3-year-old, I think.
How
Um,
cool.
so yeah, it's a lot of fun to be when you start doing the things we talk about,
Hmm.
and people that, I mean, I want to get pregnant, and she gets there, and that's not actually my specialty, but I've helped with that a few times. So, but she had told me, she goes, you sent me a card, and sometimes there's usually a scripture on one or both sides, and sometimes there's just another just good hearted quote on the opposite side. And she said the quote was from her favorite author. I was like, I need to start putting these in, because they could touch people.
Hmm.
And I picked up one day, and it had Proverbs 17, 22, 22, 12, 22. Anyway, it's a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And when I look at mindset with clients, when we're optimistic, when we know we can overcome an obstacle, whatever that dis-ease is,
Mm.
then it's good medicine. It is the foundation of people healing.
Hmm.
But a crushed spirit, oh, my fibromyalgia, oh, my won't allow me to do my diet. You insert the disease, the label, dries up the bones. It crushes the soul. It doesn't allow you to move forward and progress.
Mm.
There was a story I heard. Josh Axe, very popular chiropractor. I've actually had met him and seen him speak. Great guy. Went through his own huge cross to bear a couple of years ago. Almost died um, from a stem cell treatment. But he was telling a story of this gentleman who he was going down the traditional medical model, and they diagnosed him with tumor on his liver. And they gave him I think it was 3 months to live. I may be misquoting the story a little bit, but the gist of it is spot on. And he was talking about, and 3 months later, give or take a couple of weeks, the guy passed. He died. And they did an autopsy. And they looked at what the tumor was, and it was either not what they thought it was, or it was benign, but it was something that should not have harmed him.
Wow.
But he was told he was going to die, and the guy died. And Josh asked, he was, and then he talked about a story with his mother, who had a cancer diagnosis, and she said the doctors did her no service. They told her she only had a 40% chance to live. Once you tell somebody that, you're crushing their spirit. You're not giving them the will. And I understand not wanting to say, hey, you can do this. You've got cancer, but you're going to beat it. I understand maybe a doctor not wanting to line the liability around that too, but hey, these are things we can do. Let's get that positive, that optimism. That, like I said, I used to not have that. I've learned, and it is learned, to have a better outlook on what's going on. And then through my struggles, knowing God has me on a path that I can look at, that when I'm right up against it, I have it hurts. But when I look back on it, everything was there for a reason. And so now my mindset is, and we did a workshop, a live workshop week before last. Week before last. My Zoom, you see the setup. I everything works. When I flipped it on, the background went away. It wasn't connecting. We had a link issue. I mean, they were all, not today, devil. Not today, Satan. Go away.
Go away.
But,
you got stuff
but we were both optimistic and said, okay, we're going to fix it. We have a little bit of time. Let's get it done. And we did. And then we look at, why did that happen? What can we do different? What was the lesson we needed to learn? And that's, I'm sure you've done some of the meditation and prayer around Danlos, and and I'm sure you've been able to use that to inspire others. In fact, I'm sure of it. I've seen it. You don't stop. And the workouts that I know you've done, I've seen you do. I've seen videos and Instagrams of you doing them. This is a man that's, if you personalize that, you weren't doing any of those things. I know that, because your mindset is one that's not keeping me here. You're not drying up you're not going to crush my spirit and dry up my bones. I'm going to go.
That's such a powerful verse. Thanks for sharing that with us, man. And believe it or not, we've actually come up on our time. So I would be remiss if I ended our conversation without praying over you and Heidi and all the awesome stuff you guys are doing at Cooper Health Solutions. And then I'll close it down here. So if you would, join me in prayer. Father God, thank you so much for the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Bruce, and thank you for the awesome work that you're doing through him and Heidi. God, I pray that you keep them walking in wisdom and humility for the people that they serve. I also pray, Lord, that you'll teach them how to help individuals whose mindsets are broken and are not functional for them. You made our bodies to be healthy. Teach us how to steward them well. And I pray, Lord, your blessing on Dr. Bruce and Heidi as they help others in their journey to do so. We love you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. If you haven't picked it up already, a lot of the ideas that Dr. Bruce and I have talked about today, I've worked hard to encapsulate in our Faithful Fitness devotional. You can find your link to reserve your signed copy in the show notes below. And I also hope that you'll check out the show notes for several opportunities to connect to Dr. Bruce's work. Brother, thank you so much for joining me. And to the audience, you guys know what I'm going to say next. This has been Coach Alex VanHouten with the Faithful Fitness Podcast. Until next time, train hard, but pray harder.
Hey, if this episode helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a raving review so more people can find Faithful Fitness. Oh, and my dad's new devotional is almost out now. you can grab a copy for yourself and then join our free community at Better Daily by clicking on the links in the show notes below. We all have a cross to carry, but it's lighter when we do it together. So check out both links in the show notes. Don't be a big mo Bob, just do it. Until next time, don't forget, train hard and pray even harder.